My name is Stefanie Van De Peer. I am a lecturer at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh. What I've done over the past almost 10 years since my PhD is work as a postdoctoral fellow in different research positions at the Universities of Glasgow, University of Exeter, University of St Andrews, on really great projects in my area of expertise, which is world cinema. Specifically, I'm interested in women working in the Arab world and on the African continent. So I look mostly at political documentary, and very often they have to do with women's issues, depending on where the documentary is from and how relevant they are to the place where they are being made. So I'm very interested in different kinds of feminism and how women all over the world look at the term feminism, but also at aspects of women's rights that are relevant to their specific context. I think there's lots and lots of different ways to think about this and to act upon this. In general, I would say that because historically it's been so imbalanced and it's all, well, I guess it's institutionalized, this thinking that men or people in power, which are usually men, have more interest in the film industry as an industry rather than as an art form. I think there's a distinction to be made there as well. But what I see happening recently in the last few years, especially since the Me Too movement, I guess what I think the long-term solution is exactly what is happening already, which is women taking responsibility, women taking the lead, women in every aspect of the film industry finally gaining attention and putting themselves out there and showing who they are and what kind of a example they can be, what kind of an inspiration they can be to other women, inspire them also to become more active in the film industry. And really, I don't see any problem with quota, even if it's for a longer term solution. I don't just see this as a short-term solution. I think it's totally fine, totally acceptable to start working with the idea that we need to put women at the forefront of everything, not just acknowledge that they have always been there, because they have always been there, just in invisible roles, but really push them to the foreground and recognize that quota might be necessary. But I think the most important thing that I really believe in very strongly on all levels of the film industry is this idea of solidarity between women, that we should try to move away from feeling competitive with each other, really nurture each other's talents and just make sure that there are examples, that there are people that inspire others, people that are willing to put themselves out there into an example role and hire women, and just make sure that these women come to the foreground and really get acknowledged for what they have always been doing. And the younger people need to be encouraged to continue and put themselves out there as well, and make sure that they are in the foreground, that they take the lead, that they are strong, that they show that they are strong. I think it's all about inspiration and inspiring each other, and continuing with this trend of solidarity between women and really supporting each other and inspiring each other. I'm interested in specific regions in the world, one being the African continent and the other being the Arab world. I'm specifically interested in North Africa and what is happening there, because very often it gets sort of forgotten. When we talk about African cinema, we usually talk about sub-Sahara Black African cinema, which is usually also seen as one big lump sort of filmmaking, which it obviously isn't. It's diverse. It's every country, every region has different approaches and stuff like that. But yeah, as I said, when we talk about African cinema, often North Africa gets left out. because it's presumed to be part of the Arab world. But the same happens there. If you look at cinema in the Arab world, very often North Africa again gets left out. So my interest comes from that idea that amazing films are being made in Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria and Egypt, and now also in Libya, especially by women who have taken the foreground in filmmaking since the 60s and the 70s. Really what I'm interested in is the end of the 60s, this whole idea, this worldwide change in the film industry in 68, when the camera was being taken out into the street. Women were involved in filmmaking much more than before, and this is specific to the Arab world. If we look at third cinema, for example, lots of scholars have shown that women have been neglected or ignored in that field of study. But if we look at what's going on in the Arab world, since 67, 68 more or less, a lot of women have been involved in the film industry in lots of different ways. And I think what is changing is just our perception of that in the West. We are looking now and we are surprised by how many Arab women are making films, but actually they've been making some of the best films for a long, long time. And it's just our attitude that seems to be changing, in the sense that we now finally see them. So it's always been my idea that we need to open our eyes and we need to open our ears and really see them and really start listening, because they've been labelled as subalterns because they are women, because they are Arabs, because they are Africans. They've been seen as oppressed, but nothing is further from the truth. There are amazing women, and of course people have suffered from oppression. It's the same as everywhere, but for me it's really high time that we start to see history, that we start to see what women have done, and we don't start from our perception of the Arab world or our perception of the African world, that there is nothing out there. Lots of people, when I tell them I study African and Arab cinema, are like, is there such a thing? And why would you study women? Surely there's nothing. On the contrary, there's loads. We just haven't seen them. We just haven't listened to them. We just haven't been amazed by the fantastic films that they've made. So for me, it's really interesting to reassess history, reassess our own perception of history, how women from history have been completely ignored and forgotten. And it's important to start to recognize what they have done and take strength from that and keep going and keep filling the film industry with these amazing women, building on the work that other women that came before them have done. So yeah, women in the African and the Arab world are doing really well. And I know it's specifically since the revolutions in North Africa that we've started seeing them. And I think we need to look further into history and continue looking at the canon, continue rewriting the canon, continue rewriting our approach to what is important in film history, and continue to build on our new knowledge. If we look at history, continue to build on that knowledge and continue to see women as building on, or standing on the shoulders, I guess, standing on the shoulders of women that have gone before them in history. If all women can be in solidarity with one another rather than compete with one another, compete for attention, then I think it's a very obvious development that's going to happen, of support, of an opener world, of starting from history, looking at the past in order to inform the future, keep thinking and keep appreciating what's gone before us, not ignoring it, and keep being inspired by those women, and keep finding people that want to continue to inspire the younger people. So when I say we need to look at history, I think it's already happening. You know, films are being made about women that have been important in history but that have been neglected. We need to keep doing that. We need to hear those stories in order for the world to become as diverse and as strong and as interesting as possible. I think women in the film industry can continue to tell stories looking at the history of women and asserting these stories and making sure that there are role models on the screen of women of all colours, all creeds, all religions, all sexual, anything, all kinds of women. Everybody needs to be on the screen so that young women all over the world can be inspired by them, to continue to tell those stories and make the world just a nicer place. So important to make the world a nicer place, especially now, in the way that it's so divided, and we all live in our little bubble, and I think we should share historical knowledge and contemporary knowledge as much as we can, and I think film can do that. And if we create more gender balance in the film industry, and women can continue to tell women's stories, then we will see that there have always been women, that they are good leaders, that they are nurturing leaders, and that they are maybe what the future needs.